Have you ever wondered why childhood obesity has increased so drastically over the last few decades? While the price of fruits and vegetables continue to increase, while the price of processed foods continue to be affordable? And have you ever wondered while the number of children who are obese is increasing, the number of physical education classes in schools is decreasing? This is because the government is allowing it to be this way. An article written by Kelly Monson entitled Subsidies and Specialty Crops, an analysis of current state of U.S. agricultural policy. She quoted a man named Dr. Barry Hopkins of the University of North Carolina who stated that obesity has emerged as a more serious health threat than hunger. This means that there are more children walking around who are consuming excess calories than there are children who can get a hot meal when they need it. Childhood obesity is a major issue in today's society, and a change must be made immediately before the epidemic gets too far for us to handle. Today, I will talk about a couple of things that must be done by the American government in order to combat childhood obesity. First, we must put physical education back in our schools. And second, there must be changes made to the U.S. agricultural policy in a way that will benefit fruit and vegetable growers of America. First, let's talk about the changes that must be made about physical education in schools. Because of recent budget cuts, physical education has dropped drastically in schools all around America. In a study done by Brian McCulloch, a kinesiology professor at the University of Georgia, out of all 50 states, 6 states mandate that the children in elementary schools get the 150 minutes a week of physical activity, and only 2 states for middle schools and 0 states for high schools require that they get their 225 minutes a week of physical activity. The government should make these guidelines mandatory for these schools in order for the schools to change, and they must not only make them mandatory, but they must make them mandatory in a way that they have no choice but to make it, but to do it in a conducive way. Because according to McCulloch, in Iowa, schools were required to let their students have 30 minutes of physical activity a day. And because there were no specifications on how they got their physical activity, 30 minutes of recess fulfilled those requirements. In 2006, the American Heart Association, the American Diabetes Association, and the American Cancer Society collaborated to make a statement that was aimed to increase the quality of physical education. A couple of the proposals were to require all school districts to develop and implement a planned sequential physical education curriculum, K through 12, that adheres to national and state standards for health and physical education, and to require that students who are active in moderate vigorous physical activity for the recommended amount of time. The government must make their laws as specific as these proposals in order for the law to be effective. Because if they did, 30 minutes of recess would not make the test. Now let's talk about what must be done about the U.S. agricultural policy in order for agricultural subsidies to be used in a way that will combat childhood obesity. Kelly Monson, who I referred to earlier, did a study and found that $50 billion was spent on subsidizing corn in the last decade. This means that $5 billion a year is spent on growing corn. In Michael Collins' book, Keep the Omnivore Dilemma, written in 2006, he states that almost a quarter of food in the supermarket, food items or non-food items, consists of corn. Now I would like to read an excerpt from this book that describes exactly how much corn we consume on a daily basis. Corn is where feeds the steer that becomes the steak. Corn feeds the chicken and the pig and the turkey and the lamb. The eggs are made of corn, the milk and cheese and yogurt, which is made from dairy cows that graze on grass, eating corn, head over to the processed even more intricate manifestations of corn. The chicken nugget, for example, piles of corn and corn. To wash down your chicken nugget with virtually any soft drink in the supermarket is to have corn with your corn. This book shows that basically we can have a meal that consists of basically all corn. The editors for Scientific American wrote an article titled "For a Healthier Country, Overhaul Subsidies," where they stress that all of these processed foods are only undercutting the efforts made by the government during dietary campaigns, including the My State campaign, because the supermarket is screwing the market in favor of unhealthy foods. With all the money going toward commodity crops such as corn, the fruit and vegetable farmers are left out in the open because their crops are known as specialty crops. And because they are specialty crops, they can only have so much land which they plant their crops on, and they still don't get as much money as the commodity crops. The government needs to stop giving so much money to commodity crops and send some of the money over to subsidizing these fruits and vegetables so parents and schools can have enough money to afford healthy meals for these kids. In Master's study, she proposed some changes that could be made pertaining subsidies in order to reverse childhood obesity in America. One was to ensure fair prices for all crops by supplying specialty crop growers with more subsidies, and two, encouraging a diversified landscape where commodity crop growers will also grow specialty crops along with their commodity crops. These things will help reverse childhood obesity because fruits and vegetables will be more affordable to parents and schools. So in conclusion, I hope I helped you want to fight against the careless decisions made by the government that are affecting children's health around America. But it's your decision. You can either take action or you can let things continue to go in the wrong direction. But remember, the lives of the children in America are on the line.